we have done earlier in the summer, but still it's fine out there. Sunny spells, some more cloud developing through the day today, some patchy light rain over northern Scotland and at times coming down the east coast, possibly the cloud thick enough here for the odd light shower, but most places dry, sunnier skies for Wales and southern England. Northern Ireland also looking generally a bit sunnier. Temperatures getting into the mid to high 20s across the south. It is cooler where we've got the cloudier skies across northern Scotland and at times along the east coast. As I said, there's the small chance of seeing a shower or two here, but certainly for much of Wales, the Midlands, southern England, a fine and fairly pleasant evening with temperatures in the mid to low 20s. Sunny spells continuing for Northern Ireland, a bit more cloud at times drifting onto the north coast, and northern Scotland staying fairly glum through the day today. Nothing heavy in terms of the rainfall, but light rain and drizzle will tend to come and go throughout the day, especially over the Highlands. That'll continue into this evening as well. Maybe one or two light showers at times drifting into parts of northeast England, but again, really enough to wet the gardens, and most places will just stay dry. A bit more cloud around, keeping the temperatures up, generally in the teens to start Thursday. Again, a similar story. Most places dry, most places bright. Yes, some cloud around, particularly early on, but tending to break up through the day to reveal some sunny spells. Perhaps a greater chance of a few showers drifting along the Lincolnshire coastline, maybe into the Norfolk coast as well. But again, bar the odd light shower inland, most places I think will stay dry. Perhaps a sunnier day over the Moray Firth, for example. A bit more cloud coming into the far northwest later on. Goodbye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M4 eastbound exit at junction 17 in Bristol is closed between junctions 20 and 19. The M1 is closed between junctions 9 and 11A in Luton. The A5 is closed after the A453. The M6 northbound between junctions 14 and 15 in Stone has an obstruction. In Scotland, the M8 eastbound lanes from the M8 joining to the M74 are restricted to 2 lanes, causing congestion. Across Wales, the M4 eastbound at J33 Capel Llanilturn is congested. And on the trains, cross-country services have no trains between Torquay and Paignton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Wednesday, the 22nd of July, live across the United Kingdom. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, is it a case of justice denied? Two of the men convicted of killing PC Andrew Harper, who was dragged by their getaway car for more than a mile, could be released from prison early.
And an early release joke, or bad joke, Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood, the Defence Secretary and Home Secretary, caught on camera laughing about Labour's early release prisoner scheme. Take a listen.
No, he's the enemy now. No, he's not.
And some breaking news this morning. Single bus fares will be capped at £2 across England from January. Fair play, Prime Minister?
And breaking news, inflation has fallen from 2.8 to 2.6%, but the Prime Minister is now considering a U-turn on raising the tax-free personal allowance.
You know, and what is objectionable about him? His racism, his misogyny.
Well, the White House is apparently alarmed that Ed Miliband, the man who once called Trump a racist, misogynistic, self-confessed groper, has been appointed Foreign Secretary.
The distraction needs to end, and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
Well, the Labour leader who called for Keir Starmer to be sacked or to resign, Anna Sawar, is going to be given a peerage and put straight into Andy Burnham's top ministerial team.
So, Andrew, yesterday, Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood were at a party celebrating the new government, the cabinet appointments, and Wes Streeting joked that the new Justice Secretary, Alex Norris, was the bad guy now because he was going to be responsible for letting people out under this early release scheme. It's caused absolute outrage online because it was leaked. It was supposed to be a private joke, but somehow it's got into the public domain.
It's the peril of hot mics, and of course Wes Streeting is one of the most media-savvy members of that cabinet. He's put out an apology. Shabana Mahmood's statement, which is very similar. They've obviously
yes, exchanged notes.
Yeah, she doesn't use the word sorry, but he made more of a joke of it. But the problem they've got is the day this joke has appeared on the front page of the Daily Telegraph today, we learned the pretty shocking news, frankly, that the killers, two of the killers of PC Andrew Harper, are going to be released early. I don't think killers of police officers should be released early, ever.
I completely agree, but the problem is the two things are being conflated. Colleagues making a private joke is completely normal for people in high-stress jobs to try and make light of situations. You can't do those jobs without it. We call it undertaker's humour, don't we? It's a very classic British thing. Churchill did it all the time. We're conflating that, which is perfectly normal, with something, really bad government policy that is happening and that shouldn't be happening. But the outrage online is insane. I don't think they should have apologised. The people who should be apologising, those who leaked a private comment to the press.
Never private if you're in the Downing Street Garden.
Well, I suppose that's true, but where can people speak in private?
Very public place, Downing Street Garden. As ever, tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. A video has emerged of Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood joking about Labour's early prisoner release scheme. Since then, the Home Secretary has said there was no ill intent, but she appreciates the extremity of the issue. Meanwhile, Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, has apologised. Well, it comes as the two of the men jailed for killing police officer Andrew Harper after he was dragged down a country road while responding to a burglary may be eligible for early release. Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole were jailed for 13 years in 2020 for the manslaughter of the 28-year-old. Elsewhere, most single bus fares in England will be capped at £2 from January the 1st next year, the Prime Minister Andy Burnham has today announced. It says Mr Burnham has urged ministers to take a hard look at their budgets amid growing concerns over his spending pledges. And the UK rate of inflation has slowed to 2.6% in the 12 months to June, according to official figures. That compares to 2.8% for the year to May. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So 2 of PC Andrew Harper's killers, remember he was caught up in their car, dragged up a street at high speed, are set to be released early from jail under Labour's plans to tackle prison overcrowding.
Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole, who were jailed for 13 years in 2020. They were just 17 at the time of his killing. They were jailed for manslaughter, of course, of the 28-year-old PC Andrew Harper. And they are now eligible for release after serving just half of their sentences under the Ministry of Justice's early release scheme.
So just to remind you, if you remember the case, 7 years ago, the police constable was dragged to his death behind a getaway car which was fleeing the scene of a crime. He was trying to stop thieves stealing a quad bike.
Yeah. And it was 3 young men, wasn't it? One, the driver is not eligible for early release, but the 2 passengers...
That's right, who were in the car, and they got sentenced to 13 years. Of course, now they've served 6 years. It looks like they're coming out. The mother of Andrew has condemned the decision, and she said he can't ever get his life back. Why should these young killers get their life back?
Yeah. Well, to talk about this and the early release scheme in general, we have the police and crime commentator Danny Shaw. Danny, good morning. Thank you for speaking to us on GB News. Now, this is a really, really tragic situation, particularly for the family of the victim, to learn that 2 of the killers who took part in such a tragic story, appalling death of PC Harper, are going to be released early. Why is this even being considered? Can you remind us about the government's early release scheme?
Well, the government had a bit of a crisis when it came into power in 2024 because the prisons were literally running out of space. So they first of all had to introduce a scheme under which prisoners could be released at the 40% mark of their sentence rather than 50%. That was an emergency early release scheme, but a lot of the most serious offenders were excluded from that scheme. That created some space, but this programme is actually written into law. It's the new Sentencing Act, and what it says is that most prisoners serving fixed term sentences, called determinate sentences, where you've got a fixed number of years, like these 2 individuals, can be released 1/3 of the way through their sentence rather than at the 40% mark, and if they were due to be released at the 2/3 point, they can be released halfway through. Now, when this legislation was put forward by the government and passed by Parliament, but when it was put through, there were no exclusions made for people given fixed term sentences for the most violent offences such as manslaughter, for sexual offences and so on. And that, I'm afraid, is where the government has gone massively wrong on this. They should have seen what was coming down the track, that there would be these cases that would come up of people who were in prison and victims would get a letter saying, as has been the case in this instance, saying, I'm very sorry to have to tell you, but the 2 of the 3 people who were jailed for the horrendous crime of killing Andrew Harper are going to be let out earlier than you anticipated. It is happening to hundreds and thousands of victims who are getting these emails and letters from the Ministry of Justice at the moment telling them the perpetrators of their crimes are coming out earlier. It was an avoidable situation. The government had to create more room in prisons because the projections are that unless they create more space, even with a prison building programme which is going ahead, they will run out of room. But what they should have done, in my view, was to factor in these most egregious crimes and exclude them from the scheme.
And Danny, why this one sounds especially tone deaf, you will recall there was a great outcry at the sentence these young men were given for the killing of PC Harper, and it led to something called Harper's Law, which meant we would get a mandatory life sentence for any killer of emergency workers. Of course, PC Harper was an emergency worker. So you would have thought, bearing in mind that law was passed and that law campaign was led by Andrew Harper's widow, that they would have been a bit more sensitive to releasing these killers early.
Absolutely, and you know they surely could have excluded people who were serving sentences for manslaughter. You know, as a starting point, I can't believe that the number of people is going to be so great that it would affect the capacity issues that they've got in prison. And they could have worked, you know, to exclude those. They could have also worked to exclude the most serious sex offenders who are given fixed term sentences. Now, I don't think it's too late to undo this problem, and I am sure that Alex Norris, the new Justice Secretary, is looking at this as a priority, and I would hope that he is, and he's been tasked to do it by Andy Burnham, to say, is there a way in which we can suspend parts of this legislation that are due to take effect in September? It's not too late to do it, to say for people who are already in prison serving sentences for the most serious crimes, this scheme will not apply. I don't think they can avoid doing it for future people who are being sentenced, but for those already in prison, I think they do, and that should be, you know, an absolutely urgent priority for them now.
And Danny, do you think that there will be somebody now in government going through the list of people who would potentially be eligible for release under the scheme from September, and I suppose red flagging those that would be of public concern or would seem particularly egregious? Would you recommend that they should start doing that?
Absolutely. I mean, they should have been doing that months ago, Miriam. I mean, that's what you've got political advisors, you know, in the Ministry of Justice advising ministers saying, this is, I mean, I could tell you that this was going to be an issue, right? I mean, do you remember the first early release scheme back in 2024 on the day that it took effect, and the cameras were all outside Wandsworth Prison and Wormwood Scrubs and Brixton and so on as prisoners were released? You know, that was a bad couple of days of headlines, but I do think that most people understood why that was necessary, and Shabana Mahmood, who was Justice Secretary at the time, I think explained very well that we had no alternative but to do this. That is not the same. This is something that has been coming down the track for weeks and months, and the government should have realised that there would be cases like this and other cases as well that should be excluded from the programme. So it's not too late to do that. I'm afraid this is symptomatic of poor departmental management and politics by Alex Norris's predecessor, David Lammy, in my view, who I think blundered over the mistaken releases of prisoners. Remember Hadish Kibatu, the asylum seeker who was mistakenly released? That was a complete fiasco. The way the jury trial reforms have been handled to tackle court backlogs has been appalling, and now we've got this.
Yeah, Danny, thank you so much for being so forthright. That's Danny Shaw, Home Affairs spokesman. Danny, thank you for talking to us. Ministry of Justice spokesman said...
This was a horrific crime, and our deepest sympathies are with PC Andrew Harper's family and friends. In 2024, the country was facing a prison crisis and a total breakdown of law and order. With judges ordered to stop jailing dangerous criminals, this government is committed to public safety. We are building prison places at the fastest rates since the Victorian era and taking the difficult decisions needed to lock up the most dangerous offences.
And if they don't get, Miriam, that what breaks down confidence in the judicial system is releasing people like that, killers of police officers should not be released early, ever. That's what the whole point of Harper's Law was. The killers of emergency workers, such as police officers and paramedics, get a mandatory life sentence.
Absolutely, and I think governments should use whatever powers they can have to build prisons quickly.
Intervene. Also, he'd only been married for
a month. I know, and that wedding photo will never forget with his wife, Lissy.
Now we've got some breaking news and a cheerier note. Kensington Palace has released a photo of Prince George. He's now a teenager. He seems smiling at the palace just after trooping the colour last month. And from all of us, happy birthday. Looking rather grown up, isn't he?
Very smart young man there, yes.
Very grown up.
But happy birthday, Prince George. And of course, he's starting a new school in September, Eton, where his father and uncle went. And we wish him all the best with that.
And some people say elitist. I want the king, future king, to go to the best school possible.
Absolutely.
And that's Eton.
However, I don't think he'll be travelling there by bus.
I doubt it.
If Prince George was to travel to Eton by bus, he'd be very happy this morning because bus users have found out that single fares are going to be capped at £2 across England from January.
But up next, inflation has fallen, which is good news. It's to 2.6% this morning. But are we about to see a pretty big U-turn from the Prime Minister, which will affect everybody who pays income tax? We'll have the details.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. Still very hot over Spain and Italy at the moment, but the heat will be easing as we head into the weekend. Generally sunny around the Med, but there are some showers feeding into northern parts of Turkey. The odd shower possible in northern Greece as well. But generally dry and sunny and still very hot for Italy and most of Spain, particularly so in the south. Same goes for Morocco. We will see those temperatures just coming down a little bit as we head into the weekend, with an increasing chance for Italy and Croatia of the odd shower.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Olympian Sharon Davies. Sharon, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I think this is preposterous that we're banning Sports Day for kids, and our viewers are obviously also thinking this is completely bonkers. But is there a case to be made that perhaps we should be looking after young people when the heat is quite extreme in many people's cases, they'll say? What do you think, Sharon?
I think looking after our kids is making them resilient and giving them a sports day. I mean, sport in schools has been relegated year on year on year, and it's so depressing. You know, it's such an important part of young people's lives. Give them a hat, give them some sunscreen, make sure they're drinking plenty of water, stick them in the shade when they're not, actually having a little race. This is all about just kids getting used to life, and wrapping them in cotton wool is not the answer.
The People's Channel. Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So you go along to the car showroom and only like 10%, at most maybe 15%, pay cash. The rest buy on some form of financing. And you often buy, it's a bit like a mortgage, and it's like buying a mortgage from the estate agent, which we all know is a terribly bad idea. Yeah. But this is what people did. And the deal is, the scandal is, the guys in the showroom were acting as dealers and brokers, and they were in many cases inflating the interest rate that you paid so that they could get bigger commission. And they didn't declare that. So you basically ended up paying more for your car than you would otherwise have done if you'd gone into the open market and found yourself, a better deal.
How did that come to light?
Well, over many years. I mean, this has been going on since 2007.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Ruth Ellis was executed on the 13th of July 1955. She was convicted of murdering a partner, David Blakely. There's been a long campaign about what to do about all of that. She has now had a conditional pardon, which would mean she would have been sentenced to life rather than sentenced to death. So it's a significant move, but what do her family make of it? Well, her grandson, Stephen Beard, is here alongside solicitor Grace Horton. Good to see you both this morning. I mean, look, from a family perspective, Stephen, what does this mean?
It's huge. It was a monumental day yesterday. In essence, it's the removal of a negative blotch in our family history. We have effectively rewritten history because ultimately, for the last 70-odd years, the truth hasn't been known.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 11 minutes to 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, the rate of inflation has slowed to 2.6%, driven lower by fuel prices, especially diesel, but I suspect that's not going to last long because oil prices are soaring again because of the war.
Absolutely, it seems to have restarted, doesn't it? But we are about to see potentially a U-turn, another one from Andy Burnham. Of course, during his campaign, or during the run-ups to him becoming Prime Minister, he was suggesting that he might increase the tax-free personal allowance, which has been frozen for some time.
Yeah, and it's going to be frozen until 2030.
Indeed. But we're hearing rumours this morning that might not actually be the case. Well, hopefully someone who
More than the rumour, it's the splash in the Financial Times.
That must be true then.
I reckon it is.
In that case, let's speak to Michael Simmons, who is the economics editor at The Spectator, who will have more for us. Michael, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Andy Burnham has made reducing the cost of living fundamental to his premiership. He has asked all the cabinet ministers to go away and look for ways that they can make the cost of living lower for ordinary people. Do you think the kinds of things that Burnham is doing, capping bus fares, taking VAT off energy bills, will actually have a material effect?
I mean, people will feel it in their pockets, but this is not game-changing amounts of money. I mean, the unfunded cut to VAT on energy bills is only going to save the average household something like £45 a year, and it will bring inflation down later in the year by about 0.1 percentage points. I mean, cheaper capped bus fares, that's great for people who use the buses all the time. But when I think about this, it's all a bit sort of Martin Lewis. In that it's all about, you know, saving little bits here, every little helps. What we haven't heard yet from Burnham, and in his defence, he's only been in for a couple of days, but what we haven't heard is how we fix things for the long term. This is about, you know, taking the worst peak away from the crisis. He's not talked about how we get inflation like really low and, you know, really flat into the future by doing things like reforming planning, by doing things like sorting our energy system. And it feels to me like Britain just gets into cost of living crisis after cost of living crisis, and we do a little, you know, bit of relief, but we never fix the fundamentals.
Well, I was going to say, but what we was pretty clear he was going to do, because he told us this during the Makerville by-election, which propelled him into number 10 effectively. He said the issue that came up on the doorstep again and again was that tax thresholds have been frozen for years and years. So all sorts of people are now being dragged into taxation who wouldn't normally. We know a lot of pensions are going to be dragged into taxation. Now, the front page of the Financial Times says today, Burnham backs away from rising tax allowance. He gave an interview to the Times on Monday saying he was going to do this.
Well, this is worrying, isn't it? And it suggests to me that basically there's been no real plan or conversation with the Treasury or even like Treasury experts or Treasury advisors, because you see this as well in the energy announcement. They end up being announced and, you know, within minutes, it turned out it was unfunded. And I wonder if the same thing has happened there. He's right to, you know, address the perniciousness of fiscal drag. We've had successive governments say that they weren't going to bring up income tax, but they just did it by stealth and said, you know, as inflation goes up, people get dragged further up the tax scale. And as you say, people get dragged into paying tax for the first time. But it's almost as if he said, yep, that's the sort of thing we want to do. That came up at the doorstep. And as soon as, you know, he appointed John Healey, as soon as they had a conversation with the permanent secretary in the Treasury, they were told, you do know this is going to cost £8 or £9 billion, which is what they think it would cost. And they've gone, oh, we can't do that yet. It's not funded. And it's a bit alarming, given that this man has spent, as far as we know, at least a year, probably two, planning for this moment. And it's like they hadn't counted the sums beforehand.
Just very briefly, Michael, because we are sadly running out of time, how worried do you think the government should be about the growing level of youth unemployment?
I think this is the defining mission of this government. I mean, it's existential. You know, we got over 1 million NEETs, as you know, and if we don't sort this out, this will become, you know, systemic dependency, systemic unemployment. If these young people are not helped into work now, they'll never work in their lives. And Britain, you know, simply cannot afford that. Forget the economics of it. It'd be a human tragedy as well.
Michael Simmons, thank you, as always, for speaking to us this morning. That's Michael Simmons, the economics editor at The Spectator.
And one of the defining characteristics of Keir Starmer's regime was the constant U-turns.
Yeah.
And I really thought this man had a plan for the first 100 days, but honestly, this tax thing is a disaster.
I think he's trailed ideas, hasn't he, during the course of the campaign, and that is what happens in by-elections. But some of the chickens are not coming home to roost.
He was talking about that tax allowance freeze, you know, interview with the Times either on Sunday or Monday. And here we are.
The Treasury saying no already. Well, still ahead, we'll tell you why America is outraged by Ed Miliband being given the job of Foreign Secretary. And we'll have an expert commentator on that. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption.
Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another fine day by and large today. Perhaps a bit more cloud around than recent days, but most places, again, are going to be dry and really quite warm across the south. The breeze is generally coming down from the north, which is why we're not seeing exceptional heat that we have done earlier in the summer. But still, it's fine out there, sunny spells. Some more cloud developing through today, some patchy light rain over northern Scotland and at times coming down the east coast. Possibly the cloud thick enough here for the odd light shower, but most places dry, sunnier skies for Wales and southern England. Northern Ireland also looking generally a bit sunnier. Temperatures getting into the mid to high 20s across the south. It is cooler where we've got the cloudier skies across northern Scotland and at times along the east coast. As I said, there's the small chance of seeing a shower or two here, but certainly for much of Wales, the Midlands, southern England, a fine and fairly pleasant evening with temperatures in the mid to low 20s. Sunny spells continuing for Northern Ireland, a bit more cloud at times drifting onto the north coast, and northern Scotland staying fairly glum through the day today. Nothing heavy in terms of the rainfall, but light rain and drizzle will tend to come and go throughout the day, especially over the Highlands. That'll continue into this evening as well. Maybe one or two light showers at times drifting into parts of northeast England, but again, really enough to wet the gardens, and most places will just stay dry. A bit more cloud around, keeping the temperatures up, generally in the teens to start Thursday. Again, a similar story. Most places dry, most places bright. Yes, some cloud around, particularly early on, but tending to break up through the day to reveal some sunny spells. Perhaps a greater chance of a few showers drifting along the Lincolnshire coastline, maybe into the Norfolk coast as well. But again, bar the odd light shower inland, most places I think will stay dry. Perhaps a sunnier day over the Moray Firth, for example. A bit more cloud coming into the far northwest later on. Goodbye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M1 northbound between junctions 23A and 24 in Loughborough is affected by an obstruction. The A5 is closed after the A453. The M60 clockwise at junction 8 in Sale is experiencing queues on the slip road. North of the border, the M8 eastbound and westbound between junctions 16 and 18 is restricted due to bridge repair works, with delays expected. Across Wales, the M4 eastbound at J33 Capel Llanilturn is congested. And on the trains, cross-country services have no trains between Torquay and Paignton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday the 22nd of July. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Justice denied 2 of the men convicted of the killing PC Andrew Harper in 2020, who was dragged by their getaway car for more than a mile, are likely to be released from prison early.
And a tasteless early release joke. Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood were caught on camera laughing about Labour's early release prisoner scheme. Take a listen to this.
No, it's not.
And breaking news this morning, single bus fares will be capped at £2 across England from January.
Yeah, and the question is, how is Andy Burnham going to pay for this scheme? Well, he's raiding the net zero budgets, costing some £500 million to reintroduce this £2 cap on bus fares that Andy Burnham says will offer breathing space for people when it comes to the cost of living.
And more breaking news this morning. Inflation falls to 2.6% from 2.8% as the Prime Minister may U-turn on increasing the tax-free personal allowance.
You know, and what is objectionable about him? His racism.
The White House is alarmed that Ed Miliband, the man who once called Trump a racist, misogynistic, self-confessed groper, is now our Foreign Secretary.
The distraction needs to end and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
And a reward for a rebel. Scottish Labour leader Anas Sarwar will be handed a peerage and pulled straight into Burnham's top team after calling for Sir Keir Starmer to quit.
And breaking news, Kensington Palace has released a photo of Prince George to celebrate his 13th birthday. Happy birthday, Your Royal Highness. So that's an interesting appointment. Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, the first significant public figure in Labour to call for Keir Starmer to go, is now being given a peerage by Andy Burnham and will be a minister in the government. And now there's a word getting round at Westminster. Andy Burnham said at the start of his premiership, an end to factionalism. Yeah. And yet the reshuffle saw 13 of Starmer's closest allies going. There's now talk there's a Starmer faction on the bench.
Yes, which could be dangerous. He did say, of course, that it would be a meritocracy, that he would be appointing people by skill and ability. And I do think, to some extent, that's true. If I look at the cabinet now compared to Starmer's cabinet, they do seem more intelligent, more experienced. I would say it probably is an improvement, but whether or not that is based on their ability or based on their loyalty, only Andy Burnham will know.
Well, loyalty is everything, isn't it, in politics? As ever, though, tell us what you think. Send us your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. A video has emerged of Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood joking about Labour's early prisoner release scheme.
No, it's not.
Since then, the Home Secretary has said there's no ill intent, but she appreciates the extremity of the issue. Meanwhile, Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, apologised, also acknowledging the severity of the issue, stating he hopes everyone can see there was no ill intent behind the ribbing of the new Justice Secretary. It comes as two of the men jailed for killing police officer Andrew Harper after he was dragged down a country road while responding to a burglary may be eligible for early release. Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole were jailed for 13 years in 2020 for the manslaughter of the 28-year-old. PC Harper was dragged for a mile behind their car after he tried to stop the group towing away a stolen quad bike in Berkshire in August of 2019. They're now eligible to be free just halfway through their sentences under the Ministry of Justice early release scheme. Under the new Sentencing Act, set to come into force in September, some 6,000 criminals are set to be released. The Police Federation for England and Wales has condemned the prospect as disgusting. A Ministry of Justice spokesperson has said this was a horrific crime and our deepest sympathies are with PC Andrew Harper's family and friends, adding this government is committed to public safety. We're building prison places at the fastest rate since the Victorian era and taking the difficult decisions needed to lock up the most dangerous offenders. Elsewhere, most single bus fares in England will be capped at £2 from January the 1st next year. The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has today announced the reduction would see the cap on fares go down by a third from the current £3 cap. The total cost of the scheme is expected to be more than £500 million, with the rest coming from Department for Transport funding already allocated to buses. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said she was 100% sure the £2 bus fare cap was fully funded. Yesterday, Andy Burnham told the first meeting of his cabinet there'll be a cost of living government and urged them to all look at the ways they can help with the cost of living in their areas. In the first 72 hours of his premiership, Mr Burnham has also pledged to invest £340 million on rough sleeping, £850 million to cut energy bills. Meanwhile, the government claims scrapping digital IDs will fund the £850 million needed to cut VAT from electricity bills. But ex-Minister Darren Jones yesterday said the digital ID programme was unfunded. The UK rate of inflation has slowed to 2.6% in the 12 months to June, according to official figures. That compares to 2.8% for the year to May. The drop was driven by lower motor fuel prices, especially diesel. Bank of England's target for inflation is 2%. An increase in the energy price cap and an upward tick in fuel prices are expected, though, to see inflation rise in next month's data. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride spoke to GB News.
But there are other clear choices that the government has taken that has driven inflation up, and that's included taxing businesses who pass on some of those tax increases by way of higher prices, but critically borrowing vast amounts of money, increasing spending in a very dramatic fashion, which is what this government's been doing, and that's been driving up prices and inflation. All the mood music that's coming from Andy Burnham at the moment is that he's going to be doubling down on that approach. In other words, leaning more into borrowing, more into spending, quite possibly putting taxes up even further. Those are not the right approaches in order to get pressure down on hard-working people in our country.
In other news, England is seeing a worrying increase in young women in their 20s developing type 2 diabetes, experts are warning. The rise has largely occurred since the COVID pandemic and is closely linked to increasing obesity levels, according to an analysis of NHS data from 2011 to 2024. 12,000 people under the age of 30 are now living with type 2 diabetes, with women making up more of those younger cases, according to NHS England. And a new birthday photo has been released of Prince George as the young royal celebrates becoming a teenager. Prince George, who turned 13 today, was pictured at Kensington Palace in a portrait captured after he returned from last month's Trooping the Colour. The image was taken by photographer Matt Porteous. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
And breaking news, GB News can exclusively reveal the first boatloads of migrants have arrived in the UK since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister. Who else has got the story but our very own Home Security Editor Mark White? Oh dear, because they were bragging only a day ago that the number of migrants crossing the Channel was down 44% year on year.
Yeah,
all to do with the weather.
Which is true. The numbers are down, and certainly the weather's a big factor. There may be other factors as well, but even if there is disruption of people smugglers, then we know that it's such a lucrative multi-billion-dollar international trade or pound international trade that the people smugglers will adapt and overcome. They've shown that they are very capable of doing that over the years, and I expect that's exactly what they'll do, whatever the temporary interruption to the business model might be. But listen, look at the images now on your screen. Exclusive pictures of the Border Security Command vessel Courageous coming into Dover Harbour just a short while ago. With the first arrivals at daylight today, we had more arrivals that came on the Border Force vessel Volunteer about 2:30 this morning. So far today, just under 100 illegal immigrants have arrived in the UK, but we're told more small boats are out there in the Channel. And, you know, there have been 12 days, and this has been due to the weather. We've had lots of wind in the Channel for the last almost a fortnight now. So we haven't had small boats crossing the English Channel, but it was always inevitable that we would be getting more crossing. And there they are. Look, the alliteration on the screen, Burnham's boats. If number 10 don't like that, we can change it to Andy's Armada.
Yeah, because they were Sunak's boats. They're
your Starmada, I think we called them. Listen, it's very serious, of course it is, and you want the government to make progress in stopping these boats. And I've said before on this channel, in fact, it was mentioned at PMQs last week, that we were suggesting that, you know, the Smash the Gangs is now working. We've not gone quite that far, but what we are seeing is that there has been some kind of an impact. However, as I've said before, the people smugglers will adapt and overcome. Let's see when we get to the end of the year what the figures are like. We're now at over 12,500 so far this year, which, as you say, is more than 40% down on the previous year.
And also, Mark, there are so many variables in this international organisation of smuggling. You know, we are not the only route on the migrants' trail. There's plenty of illegal immigration all across Europe, North Africa and the world. Just because the numbers have gone down here, maybe temporarily, does not actually mean that anyone's solved the problem. Perhaps it's just been displaced.
Yeah, and actually there are some ominous signs in the Mediterranean as well about large numbers that are crossing from North Africa at the moment. Been quite a few drowning tragedies there as well, of course, because they overcrowd these skiffs, these fishing boats that come out, and because it's a longer crossing from the Mediterranean and North Africa to the likes of Lampedusa in Italy or Greece or indeed some of the Spanish islands, they can be at sea and are at sea for many days. And these fishing boats are unseaworthy at the best of times, but when you put 100 or 2 migrants on board, they are really, really dangerous. And we've seen quite a significant loss of life. But having said that, also significant numbers crossing into these southern European countries.
More pressure on the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood.
Indeed. Are you pleased she's remained in post? Do you think this is a positive development?
I think those absolutely that want to see a sort of a tougher approach to trying to end the small boat migrant crisis should welcome Shabana Mahmood in place. I think she's genuine in her desire to see this illegal invasion across our southern border dealt with. I was with her in France just a month or two back when we signed, controversially, this £662 million deal with the French to boost border patrols. But I have to say, since then, there have been hundreds more French police on the beaches of northern France, particularly around Calais and Dunkirk. And that is forcing people smugglers to go much further down the coast, away down to Dieppe, which is about 100 miles south of those normal beaches where they pushed off from around Calais and Dunkirk, which obviously has an impact on the numbers that can cross as well. So there is some activity, but listen, I just keep repeating this. I'm like a broken record. They will adapt and overcome. Let's see what the figure is like over a longer period, by the time we get to the end of the year, see how significantly down it is, if indeed it is still down.
Indeed. Thank you, Mark.
Burnham's boats, easy headline, isn't it?
It is. It's written itself.
Andy's Armada, Andy's Arrivals. I can give you more.
You even have the subheadings. Thank you, Mark White, our Home and Security Editor. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Moving on, the White House is concerned about Andy Burnham's appointment of Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary.
Well, Donald Trump's team warned privately that they could find it difficult to work with Mr Miliband because of his past opposition to US policy on Iran and also his support for green energy.
Back in 2016, mind you, he's not the only one who said that. Worse the effect of Trump's racists and misogynists, and he won't be allowed to forget that.
Well, David Blair, the chief foreign affairs commentator at The Telegraph, joins us in the studio now. David, good morning. Thank you so much for coming in. Now, you've written a piece in The Telegraph yesterday reminding readers and reminding our viewers of Miliband's role in the failure to take action against Assad in Syria in 2013. Can you remind us of that situation?
Yes, Miliband was up to his neck in one of the great foreign policy blunders of recent time, and that was he opposed military action in Syria even after Bashar al-Assad's regime had killed 1,400 people, including hundreds of women and children, with sarin nerve gas. And Miliband led the opposition at the time, the Labour opposition. He urged the Commons to reject military action. Amazingly, the Commons agreed with him. And the result was that we did nothing. Because we did nothing, or partly because of that, America did nothing as well. And Assad went on to use poison gas against his people time and time and time again for the next 5 years until military action was taken and it stopped.
By Trump.
By Trump. David, but part of the most, if I recall, the most egregious part of his stance as leader of the opposition was he said he needed more evidence to show that it was Assad who'd used the chemical weapons against his own people. Who the hell else could have done and would have done?
Well, quite. He demanded more evidence when British intelligence had already made public their assessment, which was that Assad had done it, and it was blindingly obvious anyway. And by the way, the Americans and the French also agreed, and the Arab League at the time also fingered Assad. So there was never any real question about who had perpetrated this atrocity.
And it wasn't just Assad that then had the freedom to continue in oppressing his own people. Vladimir Putin, you could argue, took a message from Britain's failure to act, America's failure to act, and invaded Crimea. I mean, perhaps he wouldn't have done that had he seen the West taking a stronger response.
That was the next year.
It was the following year. It was certainly a signal of Western weakness. Now, whether it led directly to that operation, no one can tell. I suspect not. But it was certainly another signal that if even Bashar al-Assad could get away with facing down America and its allies, then Putin might have thought, well, I can surely get away with it too.
Why do you think he was so opposed, Miliband? What was it about?
Opposed to military...
Opposed to military action to stop a despot, a well-known despot, killing women and children in a most cruel way.
I think the truth is that Miliband and all the other MPs who opposed military action, it wasn't just him, of course, weren't answering the question that was on the exam paper. They were voting against having invaded Iraq 10 years earlier to deal with a completely different dictator in completely different circumstances. So it wasn't really about Syria or about Assad. Now, if they wish to take that view, well, that's up to them. The problem is there were real terrible consequences from that act of abdication because Assad carried on using poison gas time and again until finally military action was taken by America, Britain and France in 2018. And then he stopped. But that could have happened 5 years earlier, but for Miliband and those who agreed with him at the time.
So we know about Miliband's stance on Syria. We obviously know a lot about his views on net zero and the environment. How do you think those views, those opinions will play out as Foreign Secretary? What are the risks to our standing abroad?
I think the danger now is that Miliband will try to turn the Foreign Office into a climate change department. So over the last few years, the Foreign Office has actually started focusing back on what it should never have lost sight of, in my view, which is the importance of hard power, of countering hostile states, particularly Russian aggression, backing up Ukraine, and getting back into the business of classic diplomacy. My fear is that Miliband will try and turn the supertanker once again back towards dealing with climate change, international development, soft power, all the things that the Foreign Office indulged a bit too much in the past and is now beginning to correct its error, but he might reverse that progress.
And he's seeing Rubio maybe later today, Marco Rubio, his American counterpart. How will they get on, do you think?
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, look, they'll try and make it work.
That's so diplomatic. You should be foreign secretary.
Yes, exactly. I mean, look, they'll try and make it work. You know, Rubio is dealing with foreign ministers all over the world, many of whom disagree with him on lots of things. You know, just about everybody has said disobliging things about Trump in the past, including Rubio, by the way, who ran against him for the Republican nomination. So they'll try and make it work. It's also worth bearing in mind, foreign secretaries don't get to deal with presidents in the United States. You know, Miliband is never going to meet Trump one-on-one. If he sees him at all, it will be as the wingman to the Prime Minister. And that's it.
And David, while we've got you, is it escalating ever more in Iran, the war?
Not necessarily. It could be. The problem is that neither side has an objective that makes any sense. You know, Trump has never managed to say what on earth this war is about without changing his objective 2 hours later. And for the Iranians, it seems to be about keeping hold of the Strait of Hormuz indefinitely, which from their point of view sounds fantastic. But of course, all the other Gulf states will, if you give them enough time, develop alternative export routes for their oil that will bypass the Strait of Hormuz. So in the short term, it might make sense for Iran, but in the long term, it may well be self-defeating.
It never gets any less complex, does it? David Blair, thank you so much, as always, for joining us this morning.
Now, welcome back. It's time for the Great British Giveaway, your chance to win big in our Golden Summer celebration. How do you fancy £60,000 tax-free and your old gold?
What would you do with £60,000 cash? What would you do with a real gold bar? Well, both have to be won in our Golden Summer celebration. First, there's £60,000 in tax-free cash to bolster your bank account this year. You could spend it on treats, splash out on the family, or just save it for a rainy day. It's entirely up to you. Plus, we'll also give you a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. That's genuine gold that you could gift to a loved one or just lock up in your own personal vault. The gold and the cash really could be yours. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, 2 of the men convicted of killing PC Andrew Harper, who was dragged by their getaway car for more than a mile, could be released early from prison.
We'll begin going through that and a lot more with our panel today. Stephen Pound and Mike Parry, there they are. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference.
It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
'Cause the
because
failure is-
you're
the failure is-
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
It's 10:25. Quiet in the studio. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
You can't
And
have quiet in the studio if it's poundy and parry. It's just impossible. It's just now, Stephen. We were talking about Ed Miliband moments ago.
I mean, talk about a disaster in the making. You know, already the vibes coming back from America. You know, Ed Miliband, Foreign Secretary. You know exactly what he's going to do as Foreign Secretary. He's going to go around the world campaigning for net zero.
Yeah.
He's not going to take notice. I mean,
in an aeroplane, running up air miles.
Yeah, in a private aeroplane if he wants. But do you remember John Kerry?
I do.
When John Kerry was Secretary of State for the Americans, he went around the world campaigning for net zero. Just like Al, what's his name, had done before
Al
him.
Gore.
Al Gore. Yeah. And that's exactly now what Edmund will do. The other problem we've got is that a lady called Mehata Van Boolen...
She's even more fanatical than he is.
...is even more extreme than Ed Miliband. She actually wanted net zero 2034, 16 years ahead of Ed Miliband. I mean, we are in a very, very bad way.
And her political mentor is Ed Miliband.
Exactly.
Exactly. When it comes to this whole thing about energy self-sufficiency, there's two ways of looking at it. We either look back and go back to coal, or we go forward and look forward.
Well, why don't we jump in the North Sea and find out what's in there?
Because we're down to the dregs.
No, we are not.
We're not.
We are not. And what about shale gas? You've been a supporter of shale gas in the past. So why don't we go to Lincolnshire and drill the biggest shale gas reserves in Europe? Huh?
Well, basically, because it's a reform council, they've said what would happen if we did start drilling there. But look, two things. First of all, you mentioned John Kerry. It's marvellous. John Kerry's real name was John Koenig. And he decided to change his name to something that would fit in well in Massachusetts. And they said, what about Kennedy? And he said, well, that's a good idea. And he ended up with Kerry instead.
Kerry Gold is, of course, an Irish butter.
Indeed it is. But here's the interesting
You resembled a pack of butter.
On your substantive point down there about the President of the United States actually having a veto on British cabinet appointments, are we really in that state?
Yes, we are.
The colonialism has turned the other way around. And you can't do anything in this country till we run it past Donald Trump. What about freedom for this country? What about pride in this country?
Stephen,
what about actually standing up to Trump for a change?
Right, Stephen, I'm all for that if I thought politicians in this country were making sensible decisions. But they don't make sensible decisions.
So you're still giving Donald Trump a veto?
Well, I am. I am, because I tell you what...
that's not very patriotic, is it?
It is very patriotic, because I care for my country a lot more than the cabinet of this country cares for our country. They don't.
Sorry, and can I just say, the previous Prime Minister was so concerned about his relationship with Donald Trump, he put Peter Manson in that job as ambassador because he thought he'd be able to tame him and
Well, I think the argument was if you're going to send someone to a snake pit, you send a snake. But he also whipped out that letter from the king, and that was a diplomatic triumph. But on the other hand, I think it didn't actually work. What happens is we bent over backwards, and it got us nowhere. Special relationship, I'm sorry, that's for the birds. There is no special relationship.
You're a former politician. The two things that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, says consistently about our country is, can you curb immigration and can you start drilling in the North Sea? Now, the man who banned drilling in the North Sea is now supposed to be representing us around the world, and you need the support of the President of the United States of America, and he clearly has not got it. So I don't understand how you can possibly try and condone this ridiculous appointment, along with all the other ridiculous appointments, like having somebody as Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, whose previous role would have been to enforce fraudulent claims within the civil service. That's now been taken off and given to the Minister for Work and Pensions on the basis that, that's where most fraud takes place.
Well, hang on a sec. Can I just say, I'm not a capitalist red in tooth and claw like you are, but what I can't understand about Donald Trump telling us to drill in the North Sea is, look, America's self-sufficient in energy. They're an energy exporter. So why on earth would they want to actually reduce their overseas market? Because as long as we don't do that, we're going to buy from them.
I mean, that is a fair point, but I think it's more to do with the fact that the Trump administration wants its allies to be stronger, to support... Exactly. But it is a fair point. The other thing is he doesn't apparently like the windmills, as he called them, in view of his Aberdeen golf club.
That's right, absolutely right. And he is absolutely right. But also, he needs a strong United Kingdom, as you quite rightly say. If we keep claiming we're your biggest ally, and we've only got one warship that took 6 weeks to get to Cyprus, then he is trying to say to us, and you'd think it was common logic, look, if you improve your economy by drilling for oil in the North Sea, you'll have more money to buy more boats.
That's actually... But I'll tell you one thing, we used to have a ship called Wiggs, the West Indies Guard ship, and another one called Figs, which was the Falkland Islands Guard ship. We had two in the Atlantic and a RFA going between them. We should be sending a Type 23 at the very least down to the Falklands today.
Of course we
should. Look at the Argentinian press today. Look what Milei is saying. Because they got quite rightly mullered in the World Cup, they are looking for something else to unite the nation. And guess what? They say, we may have lost the World Cup, but we beat Los Ingles. They beat us in 2-1 by unprincipled thuggery.
Yeah, exactly. And their response...
We need a warship down there now.
At least we have a statement out of Downing Street saying we might have lost to Argentina, but we'll never lose the Falklands, right? Yeah. They flipped it completely in the reverse and said, we beat England and we'll soon have the Falklands. That's their attitude now. So you're absolutely right. They are getting aggressive. But one of the reasons they're getting aggressive is because they know we couldn't possibly defend them. I'm not saying there's going to be a military intervention, but we couldn't possibly defend the Falklands in any future conflict. Whereas if we had just 2 Type 45s, you could park those in the South Atlantic and not an Argentinian plane could take off and not an Argentinian ship could leave port.
It was a big if, though, but as far as I'm concerned, last time they came into South Georgia, South Georgia's uninhabited, and we don't have a military presence there. We need to get our troops down there. We need to get the Royal Navy on station by the Falklands now.
But we do have a garrison.
Yeah, and we have aeroplanes there as well. Aeroplanes and soldiers.
And it's a couple of platoons of boot of Royal Marines, isn't it?
About 1,500, I think.
Is it?
Not enough.
You would know that.
Well, Mike, Stephen, thank you very much. We'll have you back in an hour.
Here's your second 60-second news update first, though, with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, thank you. The top stories. A video has emerged of Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood joking about Labour's early prisoner release scheme. Since then, the Home Secretary says there's no ill intent, but she appreciates the extremity of the issue. Meanwhile, Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, also apologised. It comes as 2 of the men jailed for killing police officer Andrew Harper after he was dragged down a country road while responding to a burglary may be eligible for early release. Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole were jailed for 13 years in 2020 for the manslaughter of the 28-year-old. In other news, most single bus fares in England will be capped at £2 from January the 1st next year, the Prime Minister Andy Burnham has announced. It's as Mr Burnham has urged ministers to take a hard look at their budgets amid growing concerns over his spending pledges. And the UK rate of inflation has slowed to 2.6% in the 12 months to June, according to official figures. That compares to 2.8% for the year to May. Those are the latest headlines, more at 11 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, up next, Kensington Palace has released a photo of Prince George to celebrate his 13th birthday. What a handsome young man.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about what he's going to be like in his teenage years. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another fine day by and large today. Perhaps a bit more cloud around than recent days, but most places, again, are going to be dry and really quite warm across the south. The breeze is generally coming down from the north, which is why we're not seeing exceptional heat that we have done earlier in the summer. But still, it's fine out there, sunny spells. Some more cloud developing through the day today. Some patchy light rain over northern Scotland and at times coming down the east coast. Possibly the cloud thick enough here for the odd light shower, but most places dry, sunnier skies for Wales and southern England. Northern Ireland also looking generally a bit sunnier. Temperatures getting into the mid to high 20s across the south. It is cooler where we've got the cloudier skies across northern Scotland and at times along the east coast. As I said, there's the small chance of seeing a shower or two here, but certainly for much of Wales, the Midlands, southern England, a fine and fairly pleasant evening with temperatures in the mid to low 20s. Sunny spells continuing for Northern Ireland, a bit more cloud at times drifting onto the north coast, and northern Scotland staying fairly glum through the day today. Nothing heavy in terms of the rainfall, but light rain and drizzle will tend to come and go throughout the day, especially over the Highlands. That'll continue into this evening as well. Maybe one or two light showers at times drifting into parts of northeast England, but again, really enough to wet the gardens, and most places will just stay dry. A bit more cloud around, keeping the temperatures up, generally in the teens to start Thursday. Again, a similar story. Most places dry, most places bright. Yes, some cloud around, particularly early on, but tending to break up through the day to reveal some sunny spells. Perhaps a greater chance of a few showers drifting along the Lincolnshire coastline, maybe into the Norfolk coast as well. But again, bar the odd light shower inland, most places I think will stay dry. Perhaps a sunnier day over the Moray Firth, for example. A bit more cloud coming into the far northwest later on. Goodbye.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M25 clockwise between junctions 9 and 10 in Leatherhead has a collision causing slow traffic. The M1 is closed between junctions 9 and 11A in Luton due to a night closure. There is an obstruction on the M1 northbound between junctions 15A and 16 in Northampton. The A5 is closed after the A453. In Scotland, the A90 is restricted in both directions at Finnavon due to planned roadworks with delays expected. Across Wales, the M4 eastbound at J33 Capel Lanilturn is congested. And on the trains, cross-country services have no trains between Torquay and Paignton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Well, Kensington Palace have released a photo of Prince George to celebrate his 13th birthday. The young royal is seen smiling at Kensington Palace just after trooping the colour last month.
Well, our royal reporter Cameron Walker has this report.
13 years since a newborn prince and future king was introduced to the world. He's almost as tall as his mother, at the dawn of his teenage years. But what do we know about Prince William and Catherine's eldest, whose early childhood captured the hearts of the nation? Prince George has largely been kept out of the spotlight, his parents opting for as normal a life as possible. But with his destiny set, carefully controlled media appearances have become the norm. Cameras captured his first day at St Thomas's School in Battersea and his move to Lambrook in Berkshire with his younger siblings. But even from a young age, Prince George has shown he cares about the world around him, raising money for conservation charity Tusk.
Prince George very sweetly did a little cake sale
to raise money for Tusk and wrote a very sweet card, about it, clearly demonstrating his concern for, Africa's wildlife.
I want to create a world in which my son is proud of what we do, in a world and a job that actually does impact people's lives for the better.
It's a trait George appears to share with his father, who's likely to pivot the monarchy into a more action-driven, philanthropic institution when he takes the throne. And the prince is starting to expose his son George to more of that work, visiting homeless charity The Passage to serve Christmas lunch last year, just as Princess Diana did when he was young.
It seemed to me that this was, or is, a family that are just trying to actually ensure that their children are brought up with great awareness of what is around and the need to ensure that particularly the most vulnerable in society are supported and are looked after. And I think George was genuinely moved to experience the work that we do.
Sport is a passion Prince George shares with both his parents, and he's known to spend much of his free time playing.
They get physically stronger. George, now if I play at home, I do not want to get tackled by George.
I hear your children play tennis as well.
Yeah. Even tennis star Arthur Ferry offered him a game.
You guys want to hit some balls every time?
Thank you.
That'd be great.
In September, Prince George follows in his father's footsteps, enrolling at Eton College for senior school, a stone's throw from his grandfather's home at Windsor Castle. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Lovely. He's a sweet young man. I mean, what a strange childhood to be born into. I mean, it looks like the Prince and Princess of Wales have managed it as well as they possibly can to give him a normal life, but it isn't a normal life,
It's fantastically privileged, and at school, do they call him William or do they call him Sir? They call him Your Royal Highness.
I mean, it is privileged, but it's also, it must be quite challenging for a child because for Prince George, he knows as soon as he's able to understand and talk that one day he's going to be king, that he can't be treated like other people. It must be hard making friends because why are these children being friends with you? Is it because they want to come to the palace? Or,
exactly.
Very strange.
Well, let's talk to the royal historian Alex Larman. Alex, a nice photograph of our future monarch.
Morning, Andrew. Yes, I mean, it's, as you're saying, it's so nice to be able to talking to you about a royal story, which is just a very pleasant and very heartwarming thing. I think that he looks very grown up now, and it's so strange because I remember very well when he was born and those videos. I mean, 13 years ago, it seems extraordinary, doesn't it?
I was outside the hospital when Kate first showed Princess Wales first showed him off. I was on the Telegraph then, I think.
But I think what you're absolutely right to say is that he is not leading what you would call a normal life by any stretch of imagination. And obviously that's something that William went through as well. And it's interesting when we look now as to how William turned out and how Harry turned out. And obviously there was that trauma in their childhoods. And we must also say George has had his fair share of trauma as well already. So obviously his mother suffered from cancer, his grandfather has suffered from cancer. And of course there's been all the stuff with his uncle. So it is a privileged existence he has led, but it is not a cloud-free existence. And obviously, what we're going to see over the next few years, his parents will be very keen that he has as normal an education at Eton as possible. But it will also be, there will be things that he has to deal with, and there's scrutiny of the media as well. So, in a sense, this is the moment where he can actually enjoy himself most.
Shall we move to George's grandfather, the King? He, of course, has had work to do this week, welcoming a new Prime Minister, the fourth in his reign so far, Andy Burnham. You've written a piece in The Spectator speculating about whether or not Andy Burnham will get on with King Charles. What do you think the early signs are?
Well, it's quite interesting. If you see that picture of Andy Burnham being greeted by the King, Burnham has a big smile on his face. He's very pleased to be there, very pleased to be seeing the King. And the King looks, I think, a bit more reluctant to be greeting yet another premier. But they're such different characters because Burnham's the kind of person who gives you a hug and calls you mate. And I don't think the King is into hugging or calling anyone mate. So it's informality versus, the ancien regime, if you like. And what will be interesting is to see how they get on personally. Because bear in mind that the Queen, the late Queen, I should say, Harold Wilson, who was quite an informal northerner as well, he got on very well indeed with her. And it might be that after the stiffness of Keir Starmer, Charles finds a more approachable, more accessible attitudes of Burnham quite refreshing. It might also be that he thinks he's a bit too northern for him and he doesn't like the informality. But we shall see, because one thing that you do notice is that Charles is not very good at keeping his disdain for people out of his face. When you look at when he met Liz Truss for the first time, it's a dear, oh dear, you're still here then. And it's just things like that. He really is not very good at concealing his disdain for people.
And when they meet, it is very formal. There'd be none of this, call me Andy, or can I call you Charles? The Prime Minister would address him as His Majesty.
I'm sure that Burnham would like to call him Chaz, but I can't see that happening.
No.
It's going to be...
Sorry, keep going.
It's going to be a very formal relationship, but also, hopefully, I mean, Andy Burnham is quite an experienced politician, but he's a very inexperienced Prime Minister. And the King now has been doing this job for 4 years. He will know a lot more about protocol and about the nature of how to run a country than Burnham will. So hopefully, and also there is that age difference between the two of them. It's not quite a father-son relationship, but the King is over 20 years older than Burnham. So if Burnham is savvy, and I think he is savvy, he will sit there and he will learn from the King. He will actually ask his advice, especially on constitutional matters, and will defer to him.
And how important is that relationship? Obviously, King Charles can't get involved in politics publicly, but will he be more forthcoming in private? I mean, does the monarch give specific advice on specific policies or even specific personalities, or do they try to stay to the general?
Well, I mean, obviously with Charles, we'll remember the Black Spider memos that happened when he was Prince of Wales. He's always been interventionist. He's always been somebody who isn't afraid to express his opinions. And of course, when he hosted Zelensky after he'd been insulted by the White House, that was a very clear, very political gesture of favour. And in fact, although Charles said he wasn't going to get involved with politics when he became king, he very much has got involved in politics. And if you go back to his address to Congress in America, it was the most political address you could imagine a monarch saying, as much for what wasn't being said and what was being hinted at as what was actually in the speech. So he'll be watching Burnham with great interest, because he'll be thinking, is he just going to be another one of the short-lived prime ministers?
Yes.
Or is there actually going to be something more to him? And obviously the jury's very much out at the moment.
Fascinating.
Indeed.
Well, of course, he's doing his 10-year plan later in the year, so he's obviously got ambitions to get just a little longer than his predecessors. Alex Lyman, always lovely to talk to you. And if you haven't read his piece in The Spectator, you should, because it's very good. Now, up next, single bus fares will be capped at £2 across England from January. This is part of the Prime Minister's pledge to create a fairer Britain.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, sadly, airfares have not been capped at £2, but here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Still very hot over Spain and Italy at the moment, but the heat will be easing as we head into the weekend. Generally sunny around the Med, but there are some showers feeding into northern parts of Turkey. The odd shower possible in northern Greece as well. But generally dry and sunny, and still very hot for Italy and most of Spain, particularly so in the south. Same goes for Morocco. We will see those temperatures just coming down a little bit as we head into the weekend, with an increasing chance for Italy and Croatia of the odd shower.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Should James Bond stay white and male?
Yes, I think that's probably the best course of action. If you think about it, Amazon have taken over Bond about a year ago, and they're a big company, aren't they? And this is a risk, isn't it? They don't want to be seen to cast their first James Bond in anything other than the most popular Bond to everybody. So if you're a casting director, like Debbie McWilliams has said, the previous one, I suppose it'd be who would be the most popular? What's the safest thing to do? So I think, you know, in other iterations, you know, there's nothing to say he couldn't be anything other than white, but this is the first one back. So I think it will be the safe thing to do. And it has to be a man. That's non-negotiable. I think audiences would instantly be complaining, and they want as little controversy going into this new film as they can.
The People's Channel. Martin Daubney. Weekdays from 3 p.m.
With the football, a row has erupted. A racism row again, this time at a Kent secondary school after pupils' children were allegedly told to scrub painted England flags from their arms because, you've guessed it, they were deemed as racist. Is this the woke flag monitors simply spoiling everybody's fun?
Now, look, if we are going to police flags, that's clearly a problem. I think there are lots of people who feel negatively towards the England flag because of what it's represented in the past, and that's a real shame. But it's nice to see that new generations, I'm the son of immigrants, and I don't feel that. I haven't inherited that, and that's really positive.
Look,
so we should be able to, especially during a football match, fly that flag with pride
and
enjoy it.
I know that part of the world a little bit. I travelled to Broadstairs, Thanet, Sandwich. You see the Union flag, and particularly the England flag, everywhere.
Yes.
Even under normal circumstances, you see the England flag being proudly flown. So this is completely insane.
The People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There was a Ryanair flight from Thessaloniki in Greece, and a part of the plane hit the window and pulled it out. And so this man, a 61-year-old Serbian man, was sucked out of the window. And his wife, she says that she was desperately holding onto his legs to keep him inside the plane for 5 minutes. Wow. It was horrendous. Apparently the aircraft did eventually land normally and passengers were safe and a replacement airline was sent. He was taken to hospital with friction burns. It was a part of the propeller had come loose from the engine and it had hit the window, and that's what had taken the window out. So it wasn't as though it was thought to be loose in the first place. But can you imagine?
No.
I mean,
I don't want to.
Unbelievable.
I'm
not a good flyer, I have to admit. This terrifies me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 10 to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
So the latest cost of living measure from the Prime Minister is bus fares will be capped at £2 across England from January. They were £2 when Labour got in, but they went up to £3, so they're going back to where they were under the Tories.
Well, it's one way to tackle inflation, isn't it? To fix prices.
Yeah.
Very socialist. Well, it's among 3 major pledges that the Prime Minister has made in the last 72 hours, which includes £340 million to tackle rough sleeping and £850 million to cut energy bills by removing VAT on electricity costs.
So the Prime Minister's told all his ministers to take a hard look at their budgets amid growing concerns over his spending pledges. In other words, where's the money coming from?
Well, let's speak to our GB News national reporter, Will Godley, who joins us now. Will, good morning to you from that famous Black Door. You've been there quite a lot in the last week. It does seem already that some of the details of Andy Burnham's pledges are unravelling. Yesterday we heard that this VAT cut was not funded, as had previously been supposed. What do you make of this £2 bus fare freeze? Is it a gimmick, or will that really help people with the cost of living?
Well, good morning to both of you. Yeah, it certainly seems like Andy Burnham in his first few days of the job is chasing positive headlines. Of course, he told his cabinet yesterday he wants his government to be a cost of living government. So making energy bills cheaper yesterday, and today making bus fares cheaper. But let's dig into the details here. So this scheme, this bus fares cap that he's announced today, well, it was initially introduced under the Conservative government to cap bus fares at £2 on most single journey fares. Well, that went up then to £3 under Sir Keir Starmer's government, but Andy Burnham, with his shifting priorities, wants to reintroduce this, and this is something that will be introduced from the 1st of January next year. But all of this, of course, will cost money. So where's that coming from? Well, it's forecast to cost around £450 to £500 million, and the Prime Minister has gone to the net zero budget to raid that to pay for a large proportion of this. And how's he doing that? Well, it's a bit of financial trickery. It's changing what money that was going to be used as grants into international climate projects, funding climate things abroad. Well, they're, rather than being grants, going to be turned into loans. And so the government will expect that money back. But the big question being asked in Westminster is what's the terms on these loans? Because until we know what these loans look like, how long it will be until these loans are expected to be paid back, and whether they will be paid back in full, it's hard for economists really to understand the finances around this, whether they are indeed funded in full as the government says they are, or whether there's the risk that we pay twice, firstly on this bus cap and secondly on these climate loans if they're not being paid in full. But this is Andy Burnham in his third day in office, who seems to be getting asked quite a lot where the money is coming from. Obviously yesterday it was Darren Jones asking where's the money coming from. Seems like these questions could still be asked of the new Prime Minister.
Will Godley outside Downing Street, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. I have mixed feelings about this, Andrew. Of course, public transport is really important and keeping the costs down, but it's just price fixing at the end of the day. And that never works. That's not the way to bring down inflation. It's to tackle the root causes, like the government printing too much money.
Also, an awful lot of people who don't use buses, and if you're in rural areas,
you're
lucky to see a bus.
Well, still ahead, first small boat migrants arrive in Andy Burnham's Britain. Can he put a stop to it? This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another fine day by and large today. Perhaps a bit more cloud around than recent days, but most places, again, are going to be dry and really quite warm across the south. The breeze is generally coming down from the north, which is why we're not seeing exceptional heat that we have done earlier in the summer. But still, it's fine out there, sunny spells. Some more cloud developing through the day today. Some patchy light rain over northern Scotland and at times coming down the east coast. Possibly the cloud thick enough here for the odd light shower, but most places dry, sunnier skies for Wales and southern England. Northern Ireland also looking generally a bit sunnier. Temperatures getting into the mid to high 20s across the south. It is cooler where we've got the cloudier skies across northern Scotland and at times along the east coast. As I said, there's the small chance of seeing a shower or two here, but certainly for much of Wales, the Midlands, southern England, a fine and fairly pleasant evening with temperatures in the mid to low 20s. Sunny spells continuing for Northern Ireland, a bit more cloud at times drifting onto the north coast, and northern Scotland staying fairly glum through the day today. Nothing heavy in terms of the rainfall, but light rain and drizzle will tend to come and go throughout the day, especially over the Highlands. That'll continue into this evening as well. Maybe one or two light showers at times drifting into parts of northeast England, but again, really enough to wet the gardens, and most places will just stay dry. A bit more cloud around, keeping the temperatures up, generally in the teens to start Thursday. Again, a similar story. Most places dry, most places bright. Yes, some cloud around, particularly early on, but tending to break up through the day to reveal some sunny spells. Perhaps a greater chance of a few showers drifting along the Lincolnshire coastline, maybe into the Norfolk coast as well. But again, bar the odd light shower inland, most places I think will stay dry. Perhaps a sunnier day over the Moray Firth, for example. A bit more cloud coming into the far northwest later on. Goodbye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
What would you do with £60,000 cash? What would you do with a real gold bar? Well, both have to be won in our Golden Summer celebration. First, there's £60,000 in tax-free cash to bolster your bank account this year. Plus, we'll also give you a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
It's 11 o'clock on Wednesday, the 22nd of July, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom, with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, breaking news this morning. The first small boat migrants have arrived in Britain since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister. And there's been a major small boat seizure.
Well, in a highly unusual move, the National Crime Agency have seized small boats from a container ship that was headed to Hamburg. It was at the port of Felixstowe, just about to head to Hamburg to give these small boats, of course, to people smugglers to eventually come back to the UK. It's all very confusing. I'll explain more.
And justice denied. Two of the men convicted of killing PC Andrew Harper, who was dragged by their getaway car for more than a mile, could be released early from prison.
And a tasteless early release joke. Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood were caught on camera last night laughing about Labour's early release prisoner scheme. Take a listen to this.
And the Defence Secretary, Wes Streeting, is addressing the Farnborough Air Show. We'll keep across the best bits, if there are any.
And some more breaking news this morning. Single bus fares are due to be capped at £2 across England from January.
And breaking news, inflation's fallen to 2.6% from 2.8%. But we're hearing the Prime Minister may U-turn on increasing the tax-free personal allowance.
You know, and what is objectionable about him? His racism, his misogyny.
Well, the White House is said to be alarmed that Ed Miliband, the man who once called Trump a racist and misogynistic, has been appointed Foreign Secretary.
The distraction needs to end, and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
And the rebel gets his reward. Anna Sarwar, who is Labour's Scottish leader, is going to be given a period and pulled straight into Andy Burnham's top ministerial team. He was one of the first to call on Sir Keir Starmer to go.
And this morning, Kensington Palace have released a photo of Prince George to celebrate his 13th birthday. Happy birthday. So, Andrew, we understand that Andy Burnham, when he was campaigning for an election in Makerfield and that by-election, he heard a lot on the doors from voters about the cost of living, about taxes. And one of the things he talked about doing was increasing the personal tax allowance, which is about £12,600 a year you can earn before paying tax, which hasn't changed for an awful long time and is due to be frozen until 2030, so people paying more and more tax each year. But he doesn't seem to have lasted long on that plan.
Well, and he gave an interview on Sunday or Monday to the Times saying he wanted to do just that. Then he did a huddle with a load of reporters. Later in the same day, he said the same thing. But today, the Financial Times, no less, has put on the front page, he's not going to do it. Because it's very expensive.
It's very expensive, and also it's not necessarily a good idea. It's of course a good idea to drop taxes, but actually what you do is you just take lots of people out of tax altogether, whereas it might be better to have a lower rate again. There used to be a 10p rate, didn't there? So people on low wages were only paying 10% tax. That would probably be a better way than taking people out of tax altogether. But these are complex arguments that the Treasury should be making rather than relying on ministers to float different ideas.
I think Gordon Brown's government scrapped that 10p tax.
They did. Yeah. But in a way, that was a much better way of taxing low earners than having a bigger allowance, because otherwise what happens is, as your wages go up, you suddenly get pulled into tax, and there's a massive disadvantage to earning more, whereas if it's kind of graded 10p, 20p, it eases off the cliff edge.
Tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories this hour. Prime Minister Andy Burnham says the main perpetrator in the killing of PC Andrew Harper will not be subject to any early release. Speaking in Bath, he appeared to indicate the case could trigger a wider review of the policy to release prisoners early. PC Andrew Harper was dragged down a country road while responding to a burglary in August in Berkshire in 2019. Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole were jailed for 13 years in 2020 for the manslaughter of the 28-year-old. They had been eligible to be freed just halfway through their sentences under the Ministry of Justice early release scheme, but Andy Burnham has confirmed that will not happen.
No, he's the enemy now. No, he's not.
A video has emerged of Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood joking about Labour's early prisoner release scheme. Since then, the Home Secretary has said there was no ill intent, but she appreciates the extremity of the issue. Meanwhile, Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, apologised, also acknowledging the severity of the issue, stating he hopes everyone can see there was no ill intent behind the ribbing of the new Justice Secretary. Most single bus fares in England will be capped at £2 from January the 1st next year, the Prime Minister has today announced. The reduction would see the cap on fares go down by a third from the current £3 cap. The total cost of the scheme is expected to be more than £500 million, with the rest coming from the Department for Transport funding already allocated to buses. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said she was 100% sure that the £2 bus fare cap was fully funded. Yesterday, Andy Burnham told the first meeting of his cabinet there'll be a cost of living government and urged them to all look at ways they can help with the cost of living in their areas. In the first 72 hours of his premiership, Andy Burnham has also pledged to invest £340 million on rough sleeping, £850 million to cut energy bills. Meanwhile, the government claims scrapping digital IDs will fund the £850 million needed to cut VAT from electric bills, but ex-Minister Darren Jones yesterday said the digital ID programme was unfunded. The UK rate of inflation has slowed to 2.6% in the 12 months to June. That compares to 2.8% for the year to May. The drop was driven by lower motor fuel prices, especially diesel. The Bank of England's target for inflation is 2%. An increase in the energy price cap and an upward tick in fuel prices are expected to see inflation rise, though, in next month's data. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride spoke to GB News.
But there are other clear choices that the government has taken that has driven inflation up, and that's included tax businesses who pass on some of those tax increases by way of higher prices, but critically borrowing vast amounts of money increasing spending in a very dramatic fashion, which is what this government's been doing, and that's been driving up prices and inflation. All the mood music that's coming from Andy Burnham at the moment is that he's going to be doubling down on that approach. In other words, leaning more into borrowing, more into spending, quite possibly putting taxes up even further. Those are not the right approaches in order to get pressure down on hard-working people in our country.
In other news, England is seeing a worrying increase in young women in their 20s developing type 2 diabetes, according to experts. The rise has largely occurred since the COVID pandemic and is closely linked to increasing obesity levels, according to an analysis of NHS data from 2011 to 2024. 12,000 people under the age of 30 are now living with type 2 diabetes, with women making up more of those younger cases, according to NHS England. And a new photo, a birthday photograph, has been released of Prince George as the young royal celebrates becoming a teenager. George, who has turned 13 today, was pictured at Kensington Palace in a portrait captured after he returned from last month's Trooping the Colour. The image was taken by photographer Matt Porteous. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So breaking news, GB News can exclusively reveal the first boatloads of migrants have arrived in the UK since Andy Burnham has become Prime Minister. They will be, we know, be called Burnham's boats. And this comes as GB News can also reveal that the National Crime Agency's had a major coup by having a major seizure of small boats on UK soil for the first time ever. GB News Home Security Editor Mark White, Mr. Scoop, is here. What's that about?
Well, this would seem unusual, and it is. The first time we understand that there has been a seizure of small boats on UK soil. And what has happened is that there was a container ship that came from China that was heading to multiple ports, including Felixstowe. We can bring you some of the footage there. And in a container that was on board that ship, it was searched and they found a big haul of at least 25 small boats and 25 engines as well. You can see the forklift that's bringing some of the packs of these small boats out into this main area. So these are National Crime Agency officers in conjunction with their colleagues from Border Force searching these rubber boats. It's a consignment from China. And not unusual, of course, for these container ships to stop off at various ports. Unfortunate for them, the people smugglers, that is, that they chose Felixstowe because that's been searched now, and it was due to head to Hamburg in Germany as the next stop, where it's believed, UK authorities believe that it was going to be unloaded there, and then they would be, as is often the case, Germany is used around some of the cities in Germany. Lockups are used there to store the boats, check them out, inflate them like this one has done, just to make sure there's no leaks and whatever. Then they're packed up and shipped to northern France for use by people smugglers. These 25 boats will no longer be going to people smugglers. It's estimated that at least 80 people per boat could cross on these small boats. All told, that's 2,000 people, according to the National Crime Agency, that their travel, illegal travel across the English Channel, has been at the very least disrupted, and it's a big sort of hole in the pockets of the people smugglers as well. So I think, praise where praise is deserved. National Crime Agency really have been doing some sterling work. We can tell you that since they started targeting people smugglers' supply lines, that was in 2023, that they have disrupted, seized some 1,500 small boats and engines in that period of time. So there's no doubt they're making a dent. They absolutely are. The one thing to say, though, in all of this, as we've said before, it's like the international trade in drugs. It's so massive, billions of pounds in an international smuggling trade, that yes, it's going to dent what the people smugglers are doing, but they will adapt and overcome, as they always do. It's too lucrative a business for them not to do that. But having said that, any disruption has got to be welcome, Andrew.
And we've got so far 100 migrants who have landed today, we think.
Well, that's the other big news today. The first small boat arrivals since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister. And that just goes to show you, while the National Crime Agency, other law enforcement agencies can have their successes, the trade will continue across the English Channel. Look at that, relatively calm conditions, pretty flat calm out in the Channel at the moment. And we filmed one of the Border Security Command vessels arriving into Dover Harbour this morning as well, with just under 100 small boat migrants so far that arrived here at Dover Harbour. I don't know if we've got those images there. That's the Border Security Command vessel Courageous coming into Dover Harbour. That was preceded actually earlier in the wee small hours by the Border Force vessel Volunteer that had 68 migrants on board that had come across illegally across the Channel. And as we speak, there's at least another 2 small boats out there in the Channel coming across. And our producer Chris down in Dover tells me that we've got 4 days of reasonable weather where it's definitely doable, so we can expect more crossings again. So I think this is probably just a bit of a sober awakening for Andy Burnham if he thinks, because boat numbers crossing are down over 40%, which they are, that they cracked it. Nothing could be further from the truth. The people smugglers will seek to adapt and overcome. That's what we'll see in the months ahead. So let's see when we get to the end of the year what the actual numbers are. There are 12,500 at the moment. As I say, are down about 40% on last year. But if we have a run of really good weather, it's absolutely, that number can be made up quite quickly.
It is amazing how calm it can be. I crossed the Channel, admittedly, on a big car ferry last week on Sunday, but from St Malo to Portsmouth, and it was beautifully calm the whole way, with sunbathing on deck.
No illegal migrants stood in your boot?
No, there wasn't room for them, Mark. With 5 people.
With all your illegal booze.
Box and, booze, but not illegal booze. I think we're allowed to bring back 80 bottles.
So you brought back 80 bottles?
There was not room for 80 bottles, sadly.
You heard it here
teenagers
first.
In the car. We did have a roof box. I didn't make full use of that, obviously.
Well,
next time.
Well, we slightly jest, but, there are people who are involved in the smuggling trade who use things like their roof box. They're intercepted or approached by people smugglers at some time and say, look, easy money, put a couple of migrants, 2 or 3 migrants, cram them in your roof box. Nobody's going to check you. Of course, they do get checked.
And people with camper vans, I've often seen them being checked in Caen and different places in Normandy to see whether people have stowed away. Mark White, thank you very much for bringing us that breaking news. Well, some other news this morning that has got the political commentators stirred, of course, was about that hidden joke that Wes Streeting made, but they have now apologised.
Yeah, that was the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and who's the Defence Secretary, Wes Streeting. Joking apparently about the early release scheme. The reason it's become difficult for the government, because the front page of the Daily Telegraph today, PC Harper's killer set for early release. Now, he was killed in 2020, PC Harper, as you recall. It is appalling that the killers of a police officer are allowed out early.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should never be allowed out early. They should serve their full sentence. And particularly after he was killed, PC Harper, they brought in something called Harper's Law to make it mandatory that any emergency worker who's murdered or killed like that has to face a mandatory murder sentence.
Absolutely. Well, of course, it's very bad timing because the video has emerged of Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood joking about Labour's early release scheme. This was last night. Take a listen to this.
No, he's the enemy now. No, he's not. He wants to let it all out.
Well, the Home Secretary said there was no ill intent in those comments, but she does appreciate the extremity of the issue.
And Wes Street in the Defence Secretary apologised. He used the word sorry twice, I think, acknowledging the seriousness of the issue, saying he hoped people would understand there was no malice behind the ribbing of the new Justice Secretary.
I don't think he should have said sorry. It was a private joke. I mean, we all know we speak to colleagues and friends differently in private, that you would never say those things in public. That's just a normal part of human relationships.
They were in the Downing Street garden.
Yeah, but they didn't know they were being recorded.
Just about to go into the new cabinet meeting, drinking tea. There's mics everywhere. Just
well, so perhaps it was unwise, but
yes.
I don't think it was wrong for them to say it. It's called, it's called gallows humour or dark humour. People in high-stress jobs use those kind of jokes all the time to just try to stay sane and have some kind of emotional connection with people around them.
But the timing was a shocker with that PC Harper.
But it was, but they are separate issues, aren't they? And I don't think, I think it's ridiculous to be outraged by what people say in private.
Yeah.
We really want to police that.
I don't think it's really private if you're in the garden of Downing Street.
Well, it should be if it's a...
There's mics everywhere.
That's probably true. Unwise, but not wrong.
Yeah, because they were having tea before they went in for their first cabinet meeting, and to which Burnham was clapped. I thought it was quite funny when he said, I want to be clapped at every meeting.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Let me tell you, Prime Minister,
how long that lasts,
that won't happen. That won't happen. They'll be clapping and jeering soon. Now, I think we're going to talk to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's in Westminster for us. Christopher. In Downing Street. Christopher,
yes, that's right. Hello.
Morning.
Well, morning. I'm just listening to your conversation there. I think that's a conversation being had across the breakfast tables today. Miriam saying, look, it's just private people chatting away. But elsewhere on Twitter, there are victims looking at those remarks thinking, are they taking this seriously? Now, the defence, I think, is quite interesting of Wes Streeting. He said he was trying to allude to an old joke made between, he says, between Theresa May and Ken Clarke when Ken Clarke was Justice Secretary. The joke was something like, you release them, I lock them up, or worse, that effect. And he was trying to allude to that, of course, in the garden of 10 Downing Street. The problem is you can allude to that amongst friends, but then of course when it goes wider, all context is lost, and you have got victims who are deeply appalled by this government's plans to release criminals after serving just half of their term. Now, the government's stressing today that the driver of the vehicle is not being released. He's Henry Long, but Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole will be being released halfway through their term. In the past few moments, Andy Burnham, the new Prime Minister, has been speaking about this case.
For members of your cabinet to be joking about the early release of prisoners at a time when people like the mother of PC Harper are desperately worried about the early release of her son's killers?
No, it's not, and certainly that's been acknowledged and apologies have been made. On the broader issue, I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release. Of course, others involved have potentially been identified, but I've spoken to the new Justice Secretary. We will review the policy together and make further statements in due course.
Prime Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Andy Burnham there saying that the main perpetrator won't be released, but the two people in the car which dragged that policeman to his death 1 month after he'd been married, they will be released early. There's more of this coming. I think the justice space, this justice policy, when they start releasing a lot of people, as happened in September 2024, will be deeply controversial when it starts to happen in September. The government, of course, is trying to put our minds onto different things. They've brought back the Tory policy of a £2 capped bus fare from January next year for all of next year. They're trying to say that's they're taking the money away from Ed Miliband's former department, Des Nez. So taking the money away from the environment, the net zero agenda, and giving it back to people who want to get to work on the bus and pay less for that. very, very popular when it was brought in by the Conservatives. Of course, it was increased to £3 by 50% by Keir Starmer, and that's brought back. The PM says this: as I said on my first day in office, I'll build a country for everyone, everywhere. That means more connected communities, better access to opportunities, and a lighter load on people's lives. So £400 million of that coming from the net zero budget. And just while I've got you, it's a lot quieter now in Downing Street. We are the only reporting team here. It just shows how quickly the cavalcade can move on in politics. But I can think back to 48 hours ago when I was here and I spoke to Andy Burnham in the garden of Downing Street with other reporters. He made clear then he was looking at the issue of lifting the personal tax allowance, the rate at which we all start paying tax, just over £12,500. That repeatedly came up on the doorsteps in Makerfield, people asking, I'm being paid more now, why am I now paying income tax I wasn't before? We're now being briefed by teams around Andy Burnham that there is not any commitment to do it. What he was saying then was that people are feeling unheard. So a partial climb down from the more certain position we had from the PM directly on Monday.
That's quite a big moment, Chris, isn't it? Because, as you said, he said that was the big issue in Makerfield. He talked about it in an interview with one of the newspapers a couple of days ago, talking only a couple of days ago to you about how important it is, and yet there we are on the front page of the Financial Times today. It ain't happening.
Well, this is a problem that Andy Burnham has always had when he was running for leader in 2010, 2015. He did say things and then rode back for them. The problem he's got now is he's in power. Anything he says is weighted very carefully by all of us. What's going to happen next? Already speculation grown, there could be an autumn election. He's setting out a 10-year plan for his government in the autumn. What does that mean? Will there be an election then? And of course, he's already making promises for after that period, starting in January with bus fares.
All right, Christopher. That's Chris, I hope, our political editor in Downing Street. Now, what next?
Sorry. Inflation has fallen to 2.6%. The Prime Minister may U-turn on increasing the tax-free personal allowance. So is it too early to say flip-flop, Burnham?
Well, it is only his day 3, but I think it's quite an important U-turn.
It's Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is 27 minutes past 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and me, Miriam Cates.
We've got our panel back, the journalist and broadcaster Mike Parry and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound.
Right, what do you want to talk about, Stephen?
Well,
the floor is yours.
Excuse me, Mr. Pound. Allow me to get a word in edgeways, you chippy northerner.
No, well, you know, you're a bit garrulous. I have to watch you. Anyway, please go on.
Garrulous? No, it's just the way I'm sitting. But look, what's interesting is we've got this whole idea of a number 10 of the North up in Ancoats.
Utter nonsense.
Yeah. Well, hang on a second.
They won't even tell us where it is.
Yeah, well, it'll be in Ancoats. But one of the great problems that we have in this country...
What is Ancoats? Explain.
North Manchester.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a rundown area of Manchester.
It's this glistening, gleaming tower block.
It is now, but I actually worked in Ancoats when the Daily Express in Manchester was based on Great Ancoats.
Thanks to Andy Burnham actually bringing the whole... It's one of the fastest...
It's been sort of regentrified.
Yeah. But what's interesting thing about this story is that they're talking about civil servants moving up there. Now, apparently in parts of Leeds, you've got a whole load of... in the northeast, you've got a whole load of civil servants up there on London wages, on London waiting, and it's completely skewed the local economy. However, what I think Andy's right...
Hang on, why are they on London wages and waiting if they're living...
Because it was part of the contract when they moved north.
Of course it was.
Because they've got a very strong union. Because
and these, can I just jump in there? And a lot of these civil servants on London waiting are working from home.
Exactly.
Why are they still getting London waiting? Because
because they're waiting to go into London.
The cost of commuting and the cost of how expensive it is to work in London.
They're not spending £600 a week on rail fares, they're working from home.
I think one of the biggest problems we face in this country is that the ordinary man and woman in the street don't feel they have any say in their government, in their country, the way things are being run. You hear it over and over again. They're all the same. I have no say no matter what I say.
But I don't want to say. If I vote for a politician to represent me, I want them to get on with it, and I want them to go to London.
But you want some say in it, don't you?
But I think it's not just about say. It's about getting things done locally, and we are the most centralised country in the West.
Yeah.
Our councils don't have the authority that they need to do things like fix roads, run schools, because successively that power has been taken away from them. So you can make the argument that local government is rubbish and the people are incompetent, but actually we need more power locally.
But Miriam, I'm sorry, I totally
problems.
disagree. Countries like Italy and Germany have been built up from regions put together to make a country.
But the regions still have power.
But look, all the power in this country is in London. 30% of all taxes are raised in London. 30% of GDP.
But that's because it's closest to the sort of principle.
But it also actually makes the case.
It's also no, it doesn't.
It does.
Listen,
because we need to level
London
one at a time.
London and the home counties could be a separate country in a very wealthy country, dragged down by the region.
Why is that? Because the successive governments have printed a load of money, financialised our economy, and those closest to the source of the wealth, as in those working in the city, benefit from it, and it doesn't trickle to the north.
The thing is, people who've got anything about them in this country always gravitate toward London, because that's where the opportunities are. Because people have not been industrious enough and have not been entrepreneurial in other parts of the country. Listen, I'm telling you now, this idea for regional mayors, this idea for, let's spread it around the country, that's just another opportunity to put more people on the public payroll, to get more bureaucrats, to get more civil servants, because that's what Labour do. Let's put everybody on the public payroll.
Just wind your neck in just for a second. Look, you actually talked to industry a moment ago. One of the biggest problems we have in this country is the industrial north, where we made things. We actually made cars, ships, but we actually made things. And yet, in London and the South East, we actually took that money, became a financial centre.
I totally disagree.
I'm sorry. We should actually respect the north, respect the Midlands.
do respect the North. I come from the North.
You just said they don't work hard enough.
Where is manufacturing now?
I was born and brought up in the North, realised the opportunities were in the South, and then came to the South. That's what lots of people do.
My question is, why is that? And the reason is that in the past, during the Industrial Revolution, a lot of the wealth of this country was built by northern industry, and particularly the exports, and that's what makes the country wealthy. Now, when those industries were closed down, when we started to lose our balance of trade, that was plugged by foreign debt, foreign money that had to pour into London. That's why London's got rich.
And
not because Londoners work harder,
but Miriam,
because the industry's been taken away from our country.
The structure of our country is this. I wanted to get into the newspaper industry at the highest level, so I had to go to Fleet Street. People who grew up with me wanted to get into advertising, go to the South. Wanted to get into fashion and photography, go to the South.
About that.
That's
what
the
we're
way
saying is,
our
why should
country
it be?
is built.
For 400 years, the biggest, most powerful city in this country was actually Norwich. In the time of the wool trade, Norwich was the British. We used to have the wool sack in the House of Lords. That was the economy of this country, and yet it changed because you can't centralise it in one particular place. Now, fortunately, London was an alternative. You talk about it coming to London. It could just as well have been Scunthorpe.
No, it couldn't. No, it couldn't, because everything is in London. Because the financial centre's here, and the power's here, and that's why. And by the way, one of the reasons why we don't have any manufacturing business in the north of England
let me guess
is
where
because
this is going.
Power is too expensive in this country. Electricity and gas.
It's not the original reason.
Of course it was originally, because the incentives were not there for people to go and make things. Look,
sadly, we do not have
the trade unions closed down the car industry in Birmingham, right? They closed everything down in the north. The unions.
We are being told to move on, but I am sure we will return to this very interesting debate.
Let's meet in Manchester and have a discussion.
Let us know what you think about being accused of not being industrious enough. There we go.
We're going to get our 60-second news update now with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. Prime Minister Andy Burnham says the main perpetrator in the killing of PC Andrew Harper will not be subject to any early release. Speaking in Bath, he appeared to indicate the case would trigger a wider review of the policy to release prisoners early. PC Andrew Harper was dragged down a country road while responding to a burglary in August in Berkshire in 2019. Meanwhile, a video emerged of Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood joking about Labour's early prisoner release scheme. Since then, the Home Secretary has said there was no ill intent, but she appreciates the extremity of the issue. Meanwhile, Wes Streeting, the new Defence Secretary, apologised. Most single bus fares in England will be capped at £2 from January the 1st next year, the Prime Minister has announced. It's as Mr Burnham has urged ministers to take a hard look at their budgets amid growing concerns over his spending pledges. Those are the latest headlines, more at midday.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next at 12 o'clock, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. They're here in the studio. What's coming up on the show?
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? Andy Burnham coming out to say he's going to review this whole early release scheme. Of course, there's been a huge outrage over potentially these two killers of PC Andrew Harper being allowed out. So he says one of them won't be, which I think we knew anyway, but two of them may well be let out early. What's Andy Burnham going to do? Is he suddenly going to find some more money for the justice system? Is he going to reevaluate the entire thing? It's so confused. Why on earth are such severe cases being allowed out of prison?
I could understand the Labour government in 2024 getting in and saying, look, there are no plans here, we're going to have to do this short term, 6 months, we're going to have this while we work up a plan. They've been in government for more than 2 years now. When countries are at war, prisoner of war camps can be built in the space of weeks. I mean, why does it take 2 years? If this is genuinely a priority for this government, repurposing old military barracks, making them secure facilities for overflow prisoners,
but Tom,
would not be beyond the wit of man.
Do you remember the interview we had the other week with someone who, a prisons journalist or something to that effect, a prisons expert who said you're absolutely mad to think that they can build these things in 2 years. It takes years and years and years.
In this country, currently, if we're going to build a state-of-the-art modern prison, absolutely. luxury. Yes, it would take
but
a long
something
time.
That would make do.
But a Nightingale prison, a bit of barbed wire and some shacks. I mean, these people don't need luxury. Yes, OK, we'd need to abrogate some of the human rights laws, but I don't think this is beyond the wit of man.
I can't imagine what it's like to know that the perpetrator of such a hideous crime to your family member is just being potentially let out early. Hideous letter to receive.
Also on the show today, I'm going to be getting out my magic whiteboard again.
Excellent. It's been too long, Tom.
It has been far too long. There's a very, very important story that's quite difficult to explain, so we're going to use some pictorial
very
aids.
difficult to
Emily
explain.
looks absolutely thrilled. We look forward to it.
What's the area about?
What do you think?
AI.
Okay. AI. Well, if you can explain that on one whiteboard, I'm very impressed. Well, that's coming up at midday, but still ahead, UK authorities have made the first ever seizure of small boats in the UK. They had been destined for people smugglers in France, but were seized in Felixstowe. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good news.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The dry spell continues, the sunny spells continue for most of us, and getting a bit warmer again, particularly across the south. It's been a little cooler of late because the breeze has been coming in from the north. High pressure continues to dominate, sitting out to the west, but weather fronts are trying to topple in, and they are bringing more cloud today over northern Scotland, Northern Ireland. A little bit of light rain is possible, particularly over the Highlands. The odd little bit of showery rain possible across the east coast of England, and it will be quite cloudy at times over northern England too. Patches of cloud here and there, but generally a lot of sunshine for the Midlands, Wales, southern England, and in this zone 27, 28, perhaps even 29 Celsius. A little cooler on the east coast, and with the cloudier skies across northern Scotland and the north of Northern Ireland. But in the south, generally lots of sunshine, a fine evening to come, and still pretty warm at 5 and 6 o'clock this evening. A bit more cloud at times over northeast England and particularly the north of Northern Ireland and northern Scotland. Some breaks in the cloud further south. That cloud is thick enough over northern Scotland to provide some light rain and drizzle. It'll tend to come and go, I suspect, for most of the day and well into the evening time. Overnight, we're not going to see a great deal of change. Still, the breeze is generally coming in from the north. We've got clear skies. It will be quite a warm night in towns and cities, but like the last few nights in rural parts, we'll be dipping down into single figures. Could turn a little misty in a few spots as well with the odd fog patch. But most towns and cities staying in the mid-teens, so a fairly warm night and another pretty warm summer's day to come tomorrow. Again, a fair bit of cloud around at times. Any early mist should clear away, but parts of eastern England, northern Scotland seeing a fair bit of cloud, the odd light shower, but again not much to get excited about if you're a gardener or a farmer. Sunny spells developing in most places by the afternoon, and temperatures in the south again could get close to 30 Celsius.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 20 to 12, you're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So Andy Burnham says he will allow the US to continue using British military bases for defensive strikes against Iran.
Well, the newly appointed Prime Minister agreed with the decision taken by Sir Keir Starmer to allow the use of Diego Garcia and RAF Fairford for those strikes.
It comes as Donald Trump, of course, vows that he's not finished yet with Iran.
Well, let's speak to defence expert and former Royal Naval Officer James Gator. James, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, this is a war that Britain isn't directly involved with, but nevertheless, our bases have been crucial in allowing Donald Trump to prosecute his military action. Do you think the change of Prime Minister at this point in the conflict is significant?
Well, in direct answer to that question, Miriam, I don't think that the change of Prime Minister is significant insofar as that this campaign has been executed on a bilateral basis by the United States and by Israel. And in the most recent iteration of that campaign, shall we say post-ceasefire, by the United States alone. Now, our involvement as the United Kingdom is twofold. One, of course, yes, our bases in Diego Garcia and in Fairford have been used for, as you say, defensive strikes, which the Prime Minister at the time and the new Prime Minister apparently judge in the national interest. But that does not mean that they're used for all actions. And of course, we are also involved by virtue of the way in which the campaign has affected prices here in the UK. So whether we like it or not, we really are involved.
And James, can you explain what a defence, when we say we'll let the Americans use our bases for defensive purposes, is this still to continue to strike rocket launchers, that sort of thing?
Yes, Andrew, that's absolutely correct. So under the previous Prime Minister and as reported under the new one, our bases are being used by long-range bombers. And if you look at the globe, you'll notice that if they were to be leaving from the United States and flying all the way to Iran and back, that makes for an extraordinarily long sortie. So using bases on the unsinkable aircraft carrier, Great Britain, and Diego Garcia allows the Americans to prosecute targets with greater efficiency. To answer your question directly, defensive use is use in our interests in the maintenance of freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz, and probably also in the Gulf of Aden in due course. Thus far, of course, that hasn't proven successful. But in direct answer, yes, it's about the targeting of anti-ship missile systems, which have allowed the Iranians, partly have allowed the Iranians to close the straits.
Well, thank you very much. That's James Gator, a defence expert and a former Royal Naval officer. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And it will be very interesting to see, Andrew, whether there is any shift in foreign and military policy under... I suspect not. I think it will be continuity. Especially with John Healey in the Treasury now.
Yeah, but Ed Miliband was...
Yeah, that could be a spanner in the works.
Yeah, he's very anti-American.
That's true. It's going to be interesting how it all pans out. Well, up next, also interesting fact about Andy Burnham. He has become Britain's first practising Roman Catholic Prime Minister. Is this significant? We'll be discussing that next.
But first, if you want some elusive holiday sun, I think we've had enough here, haven't we? Here's the forecast, some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Still very hot over Spain and Italy at the moment, but the heat will be easing as we head into the weekend. Generally sunny around the Med, but there are some showers feeding into northern parts of Turkey. The odd shower possible in northern Greece as well. But generally dry and sunny and still very hot for Italy and most of Spain, particularly so in the south. Same goes for Morocco. We will see those temperatures just coming down a little bit as we head into the weekend, with an increasing chance for Italy and Croatia of the odd shower.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
What do you think about where we're going to get our future athletes and our Olympians from when we're telling our children, oh, you can't go out and partake in sports today because it's a bit hot?
It's a bit hot. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, you're absolutely right. And, not only are we cancelling sports days in some schools, and you said, have to. No, they don't have to. This is the choice that the schools are making, and the heads are making. So my granddaughter's school, I've just done the school run this morning. They're not cancelling their sports day. They're just being sensible. Why not move it to the morning? I've just dropped her off now. It's 17 degrees. So they're perfectly capable of running at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's lots of ways that they could think outside of the box and do this. I mean, Labour is just about to cut 22% from the sports budget as well.
GB News, the People's Channel. Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Industrial action in the 70s, all of that is part of the culture of that great town, and it's something that reflects a lot about the rest of us.
Right, but the word culture does not...
It doesn't mean opera.
That's history.
Yeah.
That's the history of the town. How is this money spent? Whose money is it, right? I presume it's taxpayers' money, i.e. my money anyway, and if you pay tax, Susie, that will
I do pay a bit, Kelvin.
Okay.
Yeah. Not as much as you, I'm sure.
No, but how much do we spend on the City of Culture for Hull? Do you know?
Well, look, so these shortlisted towns, they will receive £60,000 each to develop their full bids. Apparently, it's about restoring pride in local areas. They want to deliver a decade of national renewal. They want to shine a light on local visions and voices, they say, from across the UK.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So you go along to the car showroom and only like 10% at most, maybe 15 pay cash. The rest buy on some form of financing. And you often buy, it's a bit like a mortgage, and you buy, it's like buying a mortgage from the estate agent, which we all know is a terribly bad idea. Yeah. But this is what people did. And the deal is, the scandal is, the guys in the showroom were acting as dealers and brokers, and they were in many cases inflating the interest rate that you paid so that they could get bigger commission. And they didn't declare that. So you basically ended up paying more for your car than you would otherwise have done if you'd gone into the open market and found yourself, a better deal.
How did that come to light?
Well, over many years. I mean, this has been going on since 2007.
GB News, the People's Channel.
So, an important bit of constitutional history. Andy Burnham is Britain's first practising Roman Catholic Prime Minister. Remember, he's Prime Minister number 59, having previously described the Church as one of the biggest influences of his life. Remember, he's brought up in Liverpool.
Well, he was formerly an altar boy, and he has spoken openly about his faith, prompting questions over what role it could play during Andy Burnham's time in Downing Street.
So we're going to talk now to the Vicar of Christ Church in New Malden, Stephen Kurt. Stephen, good morning to you. Now, are you content with a Roman Catholic Prime Minister being involved in choosing Anglican bishops? Is that how it's going to work?
Well, it needs quite a lot of qualification to it. So, yes, the Prime Minister is involved formally in the appointment of bishops, but it is these days just a formal role. The reason why there's an element of confusion about it is there's part of the Catholic Emancipation Act from 1829, when Catholics were finally allowed to become MPs. One of the ways the Duke of Wellington got that through was by having a caveat that no Roman Catholic could advise the monarch on the appointment of bishops. But in recent times, particularly from 2007, when Gordon Brown influenced the change to the procedure, it's very much just a formal role. So the Crown Nominations Commission these days, the Church of England nominates one person and the Prime Minister passes that name on to the monarch without interfering. In fairly recent history, there were examples. Tony Blair, famously in 1997, turned down both candidates for Liverpool. Margaret Thatcher famously stopped Jim Thompson becoming Bishop of Birmingham because he was rather left-wing back in 1987. But these days, that sort of political interference doesn't happen.
Of course, those laws are a hangover from the days of the Reformation, the battle between Protestants and Catholics, the fears about foreign influence. They're a long time in our past now, and I think even, amongst Anglicans and Catholics, there's very little animosity as there might have been in the past. So perhaps the more important question is, how much do you think Andy Burnham's faith, Catholic or otherwise, will influence how he governs as Prime Minister?
Well, I hope very much so. I completely welcome the fact that someone is so open about their Christian faith. Previous prime ministers have been as well. And you're absolutely right. Anglican Christians and Roman Catholic Christians have far more in common than divides us. And to have someone who believes that they're accountable to God for the responsibility that they hold is not a threat. It's not something that I think people should be worried about. What I hope is it will bring a sort of humility and a concern to actually recognise that anyone who holds public office does it with an awesome amount of responsibility, both to the people who elect them, but also, from a Christian perspective, to the God who gives people power, with the vital sort of thing connected to that's got to be shown with real responsibility and never abused.
Thank you very much, Stephen Kurt. That's very interesting. And just finally, so I think we've still got a little bit of time. Do you think there's a conflict for Christians in public office? They obviously are part of a democracy. They need to do things that are popular, that they've been voted to do. They need to work with people of all faiths and none. But at the same time, as you say, they're feeling a personal responsibility to be obedient to the Bible, to live to their faith. Do you see a conflict there, or is that something that's perfectly possible to navigate?
I don't know whether a conflict. I think there's a tension sometimes, but tensions can be quite healthy, can't they? So, politicians, I think politicians of a Christian conviction will always recognise that there is a tension between being accountable to the people who elect them, but accountable to God as well. And I think in practice, if Christians are prayerful and they're trying to be responsible and they're honest, I think when the politicians like the late Anne Widdecombe, but other Christian politicians from across the Christian spectrum, people want to see authenticity, and when people are open and they're completely honest about where they're coming from as a Christian, hopefully people respect that. I think people like Tim Farron have sometimes been treated rather unfairly in recent times, but generally speaking, I think people are fair. And when a politician says, well, look, from a Christian perspective, I believe this, but that's not necessarily going to be something that I enforce on other people, I think most people respect that. Because I think most people want to see authenticity in our politicians. They don't like spin. They don't like it when they sense someone isn't being fully truthful. So I think encouraging truthfulness with an appropriate humility, where people say, well, I believe this, I'm not going to insist that everyone should believe the same as me. I think that gets politicians greater credibility rather than less.
Stephen Kurt, thank you very much for your reflections this morning. It was really interesting.
And here's an interesting thought. We have our first Roman Catholic Prime Minister, we have a Muslim Home Secretary and a Jewish Foreign Secretary.
That's true.
Holy Trinity.
Multicultural. Yes. Well, and he's a Catholic. He went to Cambridge.
He did.
And he reads books.
He's the first Cambridge Prime Minister
Different from
since
the previous Prime
Second
Minister.
World War.
I fully approve.
Yes, of course you do.
Well, thank you so much for watching us this morning on Britain's Newsroom. Up next, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. Lots more coming up. And Andrew and I will see you again tomorrow.
See you then.
Are taxes going up or are they coming down? Huge different reporting of Andy Burnham's plans for the level at which you start paying tax. Is it a U-turn? Is it a double U-turn? We'll get to the bottom of it.
Yes, and the well-known British actress Jamila Jamil says British people are truly the most evil people in history. They are Thanos. Britain is Thanos. Now, Thanos is a fictional warlord who is genocidal. So we'll debate that one, I think. What is she saying?
Goodness me. Also, AI trying to escape its own training box. It sounds complicated, but is it scary? We'll have that too.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another fine day by and large today. Perhaps a bit more cloud around than recent days, but most places, again, are going to be dry and really quite warm across the south. The breeze is generally coming down from the north, which is why we're not seeing exceptional heat that we have done earlier in the summer. But still, it's fine out there, sunny spells. Some more cloud developing through the day today. Some patchy light rain over northern Scotland and at times coming down the east coast. Possibly the cloud thick enough here for the odd light shower, but most places dry, sunnier skies for Wales and southern England. Northern Ireland also looking generally a bit sunnier. Temperatures getting into the mid to high 20s across the south. It is cooler where we've got the cloudier skies across northern Scotland and at times along the east coast. As I said, there's the small chance of seeing a shower or two here, but certainly for much of Wales, the Midlands, southern England, a fine and fairly pleasant evening with temperatures in the mid to low 20s. Sunny spells continuing for Northern Ireland, a bit more more cloud at times drifting onto the north coast, and northern Scotland staying fairly glum through the day today. Nothing heavy in terms of the rainfall, but light rain and drizzle will tend to come and go throughout the day, especially over the Highlands. That'll continue into this evening as well. Maybe 1 or 2 light showers at times drifting into parts of northeast England, but again, really enough to wet the gardens, and most places will just stay dry. A bit more cloud around, keeping the temperatures up, generally in the teens to start Thursday. Again, a similar story. Most places dry, most places bright. Yes, some cloud around, particularly early on, but tending to break up through the day to reveal some sunny spells. Perhaps a greater chance of a few showers drifting along the Lincolnshire coastline, maybe into the Norfolk coast as well. But again, bar the odd light shower inland, most places I think will stay dry. Perhaps a sunnier day over the Moray Firth, for example. A bit more cloud coming into the far northwest later on. Goodbye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana